All right, here we go.
My name's Tony Lynn. I'm the general manager of Frick Beans Kia and Landmark. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about Larry Feldman and Career Changers USA. Larry and I have been working together for about the last 12 years now. And anything I've ever needed as far as recruiting, training, Larry's been right there. Larry's got me salespeople, he's got me managers, he's got me technicians even through the toughest times in the industry. And he is just the kind of guy who's going to tell you exactly what's on his mind. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. But Larry also has the expertise to back it up. When he was in the dealership world, he was a top performer. And that's really important to my staff, especially as it pertains to training. A lot of people can come in and teach out a textbook, but Larry has real world experience dealing with customers, dealing with situations in dealerships that we go through on a daily basis and try to train on. But Larry's been through it, so he can really empathize with the people and tell you what's worked for him and maybe what way not to go. Larry is just always at a 10. I mean, his energy level is always up there. And I think people, they just love that and they feed off of it. He's not faking it. He is genuinely excited to come in and help you. He's excited to come in and help grow your business. And he's one of those people who just really enjoys seeing dealers succeed and have a lot of fun at the same time.
All right. Life is about connection. Having a support system to lean on. And roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less and then continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, you don't want to be bothered? Fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. We want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. And not only will you have ads running, but your own staff is going to be promoting your brand and promoting themselves within the dealership and within the business. So it's like running an ad times 100-fold because your entire staff is participating in the process. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now.
All right, good morning and welcome. So we have some books today. I wasn't sure what books to put up, but let me do that. 1 second here. All right, and I actually have a copy of one of these books. It's called $100 Million Leads from Alex Hormozi. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but it's an interesting book from what I understand. And leads are obviously at the topic of the show today. Perfect phrases for lead generation and predictable prospecting. So those are a couple books. Before further ado, obviously, I have to go over our disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed on the AutoHub show are those of our guest speakers, and our guests do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the AutoHub show or Ian Nethercott and Jeff Poe or any other firm or associated agency. If you have questions, you can definitely read the disclaimer on the website, autohubshow.com. So today we're talking about how to sell more leads, and Jeff will be off the show because of an operation, so he'll be out probably for about a month. All right, so let's get into it. So let me move this over. Good morning to everybody. There we go. And let's just make sure we're doing the right thing here. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to start with introductions. So who was on first? I think Joel was on first. So let's start with Joel. Joel, maybe you can tell everybody a little bit about you and what you do. And welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Ian. Hi, guys. My name is Joel Benson. I own two companies. One is called EventNet USA. It's been in business for 38 years. We do event marketing for companies like L'Oreal, Humana, Chevrolet. We build pop-up stores for Aetna all over the country. And when COVID hit, all of our events closed down. So our clients came to us and said, how do we keep the face of our salespeople in front of the face of the customers? And that's where we invented something called VidCalls, which is our secondary company, which I will talk to you about later. Very happy to be in the show. I'm sure we're going to gain a lot of knowledge, and working with leads is definitely something that we do. So I'm interested to hear what everyone has to say.
All right. Thanks very much, Joel. We have Nick Basha from the big town of Winnipeg in the car business. So Nick, maybe tell us a little bit about you and what you do, and go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nick Basha. My company name is skipthedealerships.ca. We are an online marketplace where consumers choose to put their vehicles up online, and we match them with a pre-approved customers. Besides that, we obviously sell cars through the dealerships as well. This way, our goal is to actually help as many people as we possibly can, meaning that we don't have a walk-in customer, right? So all our customers are online. So our closing ratio, in order for us to be where we desire to be, has to be near 70 to 80%. Now, a lot of numbers that we see online are 3 to 15%, but in order for us to be profitable, we have to reach that number. So now, what does that mean if somebody is looking at the numbers that way? Is that we close every single customer. And that's who I am. Skip the dealerships, online platform, marketplace, place a vehicle, we'll choose, we'll find a pre-approved customers to match with a deal. And vehicles. It's not just cars. It could be buses, could be semis, could be whatever it is.
Interesting.
It's a marketplace.
Interesting. And then we have, of course, some sponsors on the show. We have Troy Glenn, and I believe we have Larry, but I'm not sure if Larry's on audio or video. But anyway, Troy, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you do, what's going on with CDK, and obviously we're talking about leads, and then we'll go into some intros for Peter. Go ahead, Troy.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Troy Glenn. I'm the Director of Sales for Western Canada for CDK Global. And what's new in CDK? Well, there's always stuff changing in CDK for sure, Ian.
Yeah.
But I will say that this whole leads thing is near and dear to our heart. We've got a lot of customers that, especially now that the inventory is normalizing, they're going back to basics. They're trying to get everything back on the straight and narrow, and conversions and leads are more important than ever. So I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic. And I did a survey just out of curiosity on LinkedIn. It's not complete, on what the closing rate with leads is in 2024. And I kind of throw back to when I was managing internet department. So I had 4 options: 5%, 10%, 15%. And the last option was 3% or less. Comment below. So it was evenly split because nobody wanted to pick a number, I guess. So it's 30%, 33% 5, 33% 10, 33% 15. So I thought that was kind of interesting. There is still a few days left on the poll. So we got 4 days left. So I will post that later this week. So Peter, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what you do. Obviously, you have some dealership experience, and specifically on the lead side, I'm sure that's part of what you do. Tell us more about what you do, and then we'll go to Larry if he has a minute. Go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Ian. Glad to be on the show as always. My name is Peter Smith. I run the Lion Partnership, which is an automotive consulting company that works in every single segment of the industry. In my history in the automotive world, I will agree with Ian's poll. The internet leads, or the incoming leads, are anywhere from 5 to 15%. If you look back across any one of my posts, that's exactly where it stands. And if you're good at it, you're at the 15% high mark. And if you're poor at it, you're at the 5%. So I agree 100% in your poll.
Fantastic. And I think Larry's on mute, but I'm sure we'll get a comment a little later. So
there you go.
Oh, go ahead.
Yep. I guess I fall in with everybody with one exception. As a salesman and as an owner and as a recruiter, I always believe you kind of manufacture your own leads. That, if you prospect properly and get enough word out there, they come to you rather than you chasing them.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a great philosophy. So Larry, while we have you, in the current automotive landscape with Carvana, Amazon, Tesla, and others, what mistakes are dealers making that prevent them from closing more deals, especially if they're generating their own leads, in your opinion? You're muted.
Ian, I'm sorry. You started to ask me a question and I got a call. I'm in Florida. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, in the current automotive landscape, what mistakes are dealers making that prevent them from closing more deals from every lead source, in your opinion?
It's as usual, it's the disconnect in all departments. It's the disconnect from fixed to variable. It's the disconnect from the managers and the owners saying one thing, and then the processes and policies fly completely in the face. So it's like everything else. If you don't know where you're going, you'll never get there. It's like having a navigation system and not setting the coordinates. That's all. Just breakdowns in process, breakdowns, and having everybody on the same page.
Thanks, Larry. Troy, what do you think?
Well, I think there's two pieces of it. The first one is speed. Obviously, the quality of the return. There's a survey done not long ago where they talked about the 5 most common responses. They did some surveys, some lead reach outs. And the number 2 response was call me. So someone sends in a lead, their salesperson responds with call me. The number 1 response was no response at all. And so if the number 1 and number 2 responses aren't getting any real traction of any consequence, then there's a lot of your leads falling out of the bottom of the funnel. And so to Larry's point, if you're generating your own leads and you're having good communication, the quality of the leads is infinitely better. But I think if you're pre-qualifying those leads, not even responding to them, then you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Troy,
the second thing...
Troy, I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's exactly, if you think about it, that's the breakdown in process I was talking about. Because if you talk to any owner or GM, they'll tell you how quick they are with their responses and how well trained their people are.
Yeah. Well, and that's just the thing, right? Is you can have a really speedy, crappy response. And sometimes these CRM, as a guy who sells CRMs for a living, we're pretty passionate about helping customers connect with dealers and vice versa. But if all they're concerned about is stopping the clock so their OEM can keep their incentives alive, then without a quality response, then there's a problem. I was in a dealership with a colleague of mine, and as soon as a salesperson got a call, he grabbed a set of keys, ran outside, responded to the customer on WhatsApp video, and did a walkthrough in real time within 5 minutes of getting a lead. So there's a big gulf in that speed, and I think there's a big closing ratio issue there. The second closing ratio issue, and this is the part where your numbers, Ian, are probably the most accurate, whereas some people will say, oh, we close 30, 40, 50%. And Nick, your business is different because you don't have walk-up traffic, but most dealer employees don't log every contact with a customer. And so if they have a walk-in that turns around and walks out for whatever reason, or they have somebody who calls in or emails in and they don't log that lead, well, of course your closing ratio is going to be high because you're only logging the leads that have a high propensity to close.
Right.
The reality is you're not properly measuring your marketing. You're not getting good effectiveness out of your measurements. You're not training your people properly on how to respond to calls. And so, yeah, you're inflating your own self-interest and saying, yeah, we close at a 40% ratio. My sales managers are amazing. But the reality is probably closer to 15 to 5, just like Peter was saying.
Right. Well, it's funny. We had a call this morning with, we're doing a pilot project with VidCalls. I'll let Joel go into it for direct. But the thing that was interesting is we had one of our dealers where basically a customer had called another dealership, said, do you have this car in stock? It happened to be a pickup truck. He goes, oh, no, I don't have it, but another Ford dealer does. We can get it from them. So then what happened is the customer then vid called the dealer that had it and said, do you have it? And he had vid call, so he could then, of course, show the customer, yeah, we have it. It's physically here. So it was kind of funny because it wasn't just quality of response. It was the ability to use technology to really show the customer the information they wanted immediately. So it was kind of interesting.
And I agree with that completely, Ian. The quality and the tools are there, and those people that use those tools are advantaged for sure. But had that salesperson or that manager just said, yeah, we'll have it in 3 days. Yeah. Didn't have to say that it was at another dealership, didn't have to say where it was, just said, yeah, it'll be here in 72 hours. Can I make an appointment for you on Thursday? Instead, they shot themselves in the foot, showed how their kitchen's a mess in the background, and expected you to want to buy their cookies. And there's a process issue there.
Exactly.
Troy, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Troy, there's right beside Larry, when Larry was speaking, I put a wow beside it. And same goes with you as well, too. In terms of the ratio of the consumer coming in online, and I agree with you because we don't actually have to measure. We don't have the capacity of measuring the walking traffic. However, in the years of being in the auto industry and the subprime customers, if you might want to count for those leads, we used to buy leads like by 80, 150 a month, and then you get one or two, three deals just so you cover your cost. And one of the things that I really think we have become so successful, it is the fact that we are on the customer at the second that they hit our platform. The second you hit our platform, you'll get a chat, you'll get a phone call, you'll get a text, you'll get a video, you'll get every attention we possibly might want to, every possible attention we want to give to you. I'm going to go back to 2023 for a period of 5 months. I took a job with a Toyota dealership as a sales manager, and I just noticed that they have an enormous amount of consumers looking for vehicles, and the sales were an average of about 60 cars new a month. And then I said to myself, if I don't double those numbers by September, this is not a job for me. So by September 2023, so we go from March to September, we were at 114 cars, new cars sold. And that was from July, August, and September. So I want to be consistent 3 months minimum in order to know that my madness actually does work. So what we did different is that what we do with Skip is that we follow thoroughly with every single customer and do not let a customer leave your platform, whether it's via phone call, via text, via video, however we were going to be doing it. We stayed in contact with that customer, and I also made sure ensured that every single salesperson who got that lead was in that customer in the morning, before lunch, after lunch, and then before they went home. It is the same principles we use for Skip the Dealerships. Now, with the Skip the Dealerships, what we do for the dealership that they put their inventory in our platform, let's say, for example, you have an Expedition. Well, we make sure that that Expedition is sold for the dealership without that customer shopping around 3 or 4 dealerships and 3 or 4 Fords because the inventory is there. It is not after the inventory we chase after the consumers.
Right.
So if the customer is satisfied, the customer will buy. And hence the reason why we do have a very high ratio, but we don't really go after the non-prime customer because that's a different segment altogether. And it's a different kind of measurements that we do for those different criteria.
Thanks for that. Joel, I mean, as we work with dealers, and we're looking at, you know, obviously lead response, chasing leads, lead process, all those kind of things. Where do you think VidCalls falls into that? And what's your thought on what dealers are doing right and wrong?
Sure. Well, I agree with Nick. I think that speed and follow-up is by far the most important aspect of it. Before, we've had calls from some of our dealers where they contact a customer 30 days after the customer filled out the form, and the customer doesn't even remember having filled out the form. I think the mistake that dealers are making is in communication. And for your point, speed is definitely speeds up the communication process. But with phone calls, and we're dealing with a lot of BDCs that are making phone calls and call centers, nobody likes to be interrupted in the middle of the day with a cold telephone call. Even if they did fill out a form, we don't know when we make these phone calls whether they're in the middle of something important. Maybe they're reading a book on the final chapter, they're watching their favorite sports team on TV, they're helping their kids with homework, or they're not feeling well. We have no idea by making a phone call. So with VidCalls is the consumer is the one that makes the call into the dealership. We are C2B. We're not B2C. We're not business to customer. We're customer contacts a business. And within 15 seconds after they click on a website, a dealer answers that call face to face. And that's our difference.
Thanks for that. Peter,
that's where speed comes in.
Peter, what do you think?
Well,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, but go ahead, Peter.
Go ahead, Peter.
Well, I didn't know it was being directed at me, so I apologize.
No worries.
With this, it's pretty simple. The customer becomes one once they're heard, whatever platform that they're coming to, whether it's online, telephone, video call, you name it. The customer becomes a customer once they're heard. Their needs and wants are met, and the value exceeds price. That's when the customer becomes one. It's simple. But to capitalize on this, we have to be expeditious, and that is the primary concern with every single customer today is time. So whatever platform we have to use it properly.
That's interesting you bring that up. I did a post survey, and the definitive time to buy a car, the most popular choice, I believe, was less than 2 hours. But I had people on the poll saying, hey, I can buy a car in 5 minutes and that kind of stuff. So I thought that was really interesting. You know, obviously there's lots of focus on...
You can buy a car in 5 minutes if you're buying a Tesla, which it's all online, and you just press click, done. $250 deposit.
That's exactly who was quoting that. So I thought that was really interesting. But as we look at things like Amazon and others getting into the game, it'll be interesting to see what that number looks like, say, in 6 months. Now we're talking a lot about AI these days. We're talking a lot about customer experience. We're seeing the the growth of digital retail again, even though it was clearly the numbers weren't in their favor a couple of years ago, and we've done a bunch of digital retail shows. How do you think dealers can enhance their process, not just with technology, but even though technology is great, how do you feel they can enhance their process to drive more sales and stand out from their competition? Let's start with Troy on that.
Remove the roadblocks.
Ian, it's almost like my marketing department asked you to write that question for us. No, in all honesty, the reality is customers want to buy, dealers should be using tools to help customers buy the way they want to buy. Now, that means online, in store, whatever that is. But let's go back to the reason why we're having a show today, which is leads.
Yep.
So I was in a dealership, great group, good customers of ours, no harm against them. But plastered all over their sales training boardroom is how many leads did you get today? What kind of leads did you get? What was your lead conversion rate? It was all about leads. Then their digital retailing tool, which wasn't one of ours, has 4 call to action buttons. It's book an appointment, book a test drive, get a quote, get approved for credit, and one other one, or start your online buying journey. Well, all 4 of those buttons, the second you click it, is a name, phone number, email, call to action. Well, we were maybe halfway through testing the process, and I got a phone call. So if my method of buying a vehicle was online, well, now I got a guy in the sales guy in my ear asking me to come in the store. All they're using is their 4 call to action buttons is generate a lead, get a customer in the store. Completely the wrong idea if that's what you're trying to do is enable people to buy cars faster, better, easier. So exactly like good Peter said, removing the roadblocks. Well, the biggest roadblock is driven in front of you almost like a heist movie when the garbage truck goes in front of the getaway car. Everything stops because there's a salesperson you got to get through. And I really think that the lead quality goes down when you engage too early in the process. And some stores that are using AI or AI-driven tools, if that AI creates a conversation that determines the customer's intent, whether it's, I just want a price, do you have it in stock, I want to book an appointment to come in the store, or something else, AI is good enough, it can measure intent, it can get tone, it can do all that stuff. If you can have something, whether it's a human or an AI, vet that first drop into the funnel, I think a bunch of leads will splash out the sides that are not good leads, and the rest of them will start to trickle in. But as far as tools are concerned, the tools all fall apart with process, and the process falls apart when if all you care about is leads. And then the last thing I'll say, and then I'll let someone else talk, is a lot of dealerships where all they care about is leads are driven a lot because either the internet manager, the GSM, the sales manager, they're incentivized on leads. And if they get a paycheck and a commission, a spiff based on how many leads did you get in, not how many cars got sold out the other end. They don't care how many cars get sold. They care how many leads come in. So they're measuring Facebook, they're measuring Kijiji, they're measuring inbound on their internet, tier 1, tier 3. All they care about is how many leads do I get and how many times I can get someone to jam an email address into a form. And that's not going to sell you more cars. It's just going to get you more leads.
Well, 100% agree. When you look at like chat bots, websites, digital retail, AI technology, AI chat bots, the most common question is what's your name, what your email, and it doesn't even matter the industry. I mean, some of them got to the point where there isn't even a person to answer it at all. It's just a chat bot, and then, oh yeah, we have a high volume of calls. So we can't answer those. Sorry, but go ahead, Nick.
Actually, Peter was trying to jump.
Okay, go ahead.
Troy has some really good points, so I'm going to follow right after Peter.
Go ahead, Peter.
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to be a little bit abrasive here. That's typically what I've been known about.
No.
Leads. Everyone talks about leads. Now, why don't you ask a dealership what the amount of conversions percentage, their actual conversion percentage of leads versus sales. They will find that the average dealership is under 8% of their total sales came from leads. Yet a dealership's willing to pay probably somewhere around 60 to 75% of their budget, their marketing budget, to capture leads. Does it make any sense? Where your leads are, where your true leads are in your first party data. And if you have a robust system, like a truly robust system, you can capture more leads out of your first party data than you'll ever get with your digital retailing tool. Because right now, digital retailing is hopelessly inept with most car dealerships, and you can see that with what Toyota's mandating with their new platforms for webs. And they're not allowing you to have the pop-ups. They're not allowing you to constantly batter the customer with, hey, fill in this form, fill in this form, fill in this form, because you're going to get exactly what was discussed, that someone's just going to say, hey, you know what? I don't want to even talk to you. That's why you have over a 91% or 81% bounce rate on most dealer websites.
Well, part of that is also over calls to action. When you look at dealer websites, and not to misquote you, but I spent 3 years looking at about 30,000 websites across North America. And what I can say is that the biggest challenge of websites, not to say one platform is better or worse than another, is the overabundance of calls to action, some of which are executed really badly, but especially really badly executed on mobile. So customers look at it and go, which button should I push? There's just too many. So you've got to really think that through, especially on one of these devices. But also, if I have a capture rate of, let's just say it's 5% on a lead form, you got to look at it and say, well, why is it so bad? Clearly, people don't like that process. So you've got to reevaluate that. But anyway, go ahead, Nick.
You know what? I actually want to bounce back to Troy's comment, and I thought that was actually really exactly the direction I want to go. Because you have a lot of dealerships, but they do have something called pre-screening customers.
Yeah.
And I think that, we really want to look at two elements, right? So when you have a customer that's pre-screened versus a pre-approved customer, our agenda is to pre-approve the customer, not to pre-screen. The pre-screening of the customers, and I'm watching lots of dealerships, they have a pre-screening, know before you go, kind of like know the credit score before you go to the dealership, that kind of stuff. And I think that actually becomes a hindrance, even though it drives up the number of the applications, but it drives down the number of the sales. And here where I will actually kind of really walk you through the way I've seen it. Because I would give a lead that was like a 735 BGA score to one of my salespeople. I'd be like, boss, I got the customer 735. You know what? There's a deal is going to be driving. Now, the pre-screening, what it did is that it drove the positive customers, or the good credit scores, drove the salespeople motivated to the BGA score, versus going back to the old way, saying every customer matters. So we did see that there was a pair, I might say, between the pre-approved and then the pre-screen. The pre-screen, the good customers got attention, then the not so good customers, they got zero attention. Now, and then you go back to drawing board, and you go like, man, we're only closing 15%. When I look at my closing board, I say like, man, look, you know what? Every customer that goes and touches our vehicle, likes the vehicle, gets pre-approved within the parameters of what their affordability is. And that's something that actually Troy, because of the data and the interest that you guys have with a CDK, it kind of alludes to that direction where, like, the pre-screening versus the pre-approvals are virtually two different. But what Ian is saying is that the dealership, or Peter actually touched base that, saying that, you know what, look, if it's a pre-approved, and I don't want to misquote you, but if it's a pre-screen, if it's a pay me commission, how many leads, how many conversions, and how many contacts we've made, then we just achieve our goal. Really and truly, the leads, if it's pre-approved that's a solid lead. But if it's a pre-screening, actually we're driving that number down, and the success rate is being driven down because we are prejudging the customer based on the credit, right? So we're not giving them a second chance.
Yeah.
But with the skip the dealerships, we actually we don't really look after the pre-screening, what your factors are. We look at the pre-approval. So that drives our closing ratio right up high because no customer goes missed.
Yeah.
Right? If those things make sense to you, I think that, I just go back to what you were saying, that the 8% of your the budget going to 60% of the budget going to 8%. That resonates with the dealerships because what they're looking after, it's a number to post on the board rather than a sale being posted on the board. Because to us, a closing deal matters, not just a customer going and pressing a click or sending a lead.
Yeah.
So back to the AI. AI does lots of good things. However, you have to have trained salespeople to bridge that gap and put the human touch in it in order for us to see better results. That's my thought. That's the way we do business. And yes, AI is actually a really good tool, and that does help with the budget as well too, and the closing ratio as well too.
Thanks for that. Joel, what do you think?
First of all, guys, we at VidCalls, we do not sell leads. That's not our business. What we do is we manufacture your leads. What does that mean? When you have a lead, in that lead, you invite the consumer. If the consumer is interested in clicking on a website or clicking on a digital ad or clicking on an email or clicking on a text where we have a link that says, would you like to meet with a salesperson right now, face to face, on an email, on a website? If you do, click that button. And let me tell you something. If a customer clicks that button, they're a hot lead. If they're willing to go on a face-to-face video call with a salesman inside the dealership, what could be better outside of a customer driving to the dealership and coming in physically?
100%.
So I believe that your earlier question was, what can a dealer do that's different, that they can stand in? They can stand out by saying to a shopper, folks, you don't even need to come into the dealership these days. Just click a button on your website, and we'll meet you face to face. We'll screen share with you. We'll show you the vehicles. We'll answer your questions face to face. Then come in and meet with us and buy the car. So that's the way that we work with leads. It's the lead brings the customer to click. When the customer clicks, they're a hot lead.
Well, and I think that's the difference really, is then we get into the cloudy definition of what leads are, because what you're saying, Joel, makes a lot of sense. You're extending the dealership out into the virtual world, right? And that makes sense. You're providing a better process, you're providing a better experience. Everything in that is exactly what you need to do to convert more customers. But it's when you look at the leads as they are, looking at where people are in the funnel, is yes, customers are seeing, they're only going to 1 point small dot X dealerships before they buy a vehicle because they've done all their research. But what we're seeing is some of that research takes place over the course of 3 to 4 months. Yeah. And I think that if you're doing the traditional lead grab, and let's take VidCalls out of the equation because you guys do something completely out of the paradigm, but if you look at the traditional lead gen, well, if I'm 3 months out of buying a vehicle and I want to start my research today, and I look at a brand new pickup truck and I want to get more information, so I put in an email address. Well, if that guy's going to start putting me into the CRM and then beat me over the head for the next 7 to 10 days with either automated responses, texts, emails, phone calls, eventually I'm going to get pissed off and leave. So it's really that magic medicine of how do we get customers at the right time in the funnel in order to engage them the way they want to be engaged. How do we communicate with them in a way that we still capture their data, but respect the way that they want to buy a vehicle? And this is where Larry and his group come in, is if you've got an inexperienced sales guy or someone who's just incentivized on one metric, beating the customer over the head, It's like, I don't understand. I'm doing everything right. Why are the customers running out the door? It's, well, give them a minute to breathe. It's like the second you walk into a retail experience in the mall and you take one step inside and they're like, can we help you find anything? Are you finding everything okay? It's like, I literally just walked in. Give me a second. And it's, that's all, it's a lot of timing, a lot of process.
Yeah, it's like the brick, right? Can I help you? Can I follow you around?
Exactly. Can I help you? Yeah.
Did you come in for a specific reason today?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, last year at NADA, I went to Sewell Cadillac, as I was a big follower of Carl Sewell's book, Customers for Life. And when I walked into the dealership, I was met by this gentleman who said to me, welcome to Sewell Cadillac. It would be my pleasure to direct you to this department you seek today. That was it. And it was the most disarming comment that I've ever heard in 42 years of this business at a dealership. You basically said what you were there for. And it was absolutely brilliant. And again, this is a lead show. How do we deal with leads? And one of the things that I look at, are they leads or are they opportunities? Are they opportunities for us to convert them into future customers? Because it's really, that's how we define them. And as you said, Nick, are we prejudging them? Are we pre-approving them? What are we doing? And it's us as professionals to remove all barriers and bring them along the journey as they wish to go down, whether it is a email, text, video, whatever pathway they wish to travel, and then also be able to take them up on the next level that they obtain. And that's true omni-channel, and that's what we have to look at.
100%.
So, Peter, I love that. I love that you brought up the school book. I came from 20 plus years in the hotel business, and I wasn't a car guy before I started with CDK. However, there's a book that we all espouse as well in the hospitality business, Izzy Sharp's book. He's the founder of the Four Seasons brand.
Yep.
And it's his whole thing. He has a catchphrase, which is, "We are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen," meaning your position has dignity, whatever it is, whether you're a receptionist, a salesperson, the general manager, a technician, anything. Your position has dignity. You're a professional. You're getting paid to do a job. You should hold yourself in high regard. The customer coming in is a lady or gentleman as well, regardless of their station in life. They could be a millionaire. They could be someone who's scraped up to save to buy their first car, all that stuff. If you guys reach a level of dignity with each other, you're going to have a better experience. And that to me means a lot. That's the way I treat my customers. But the reason why I say that is, if the digital experience doesn't connect with, you can have the best in-store experience in the world, but if your digital experience doesn't match that feeling, then you're having a real disconnect, because the digital experience should be an extension of your actual physical sales floor, not a completely different business. And so the people, the dealerships, the groups, the customers, or sorry, the dealerships, the groups, those people, I have dealer customers, but I keep calling customers, but those people that master the online experience and make it as seamless into the store and have the same feeling and the same intention and care, those are the ones that are going to convert more of those online experiences into happy in-store customers. And then once you get them in that cycle, if your process in store is truly as good as you say, then just like we were talking about earlier, and I think it was Peter that mentioned it, is your in-store data, your raw data is better than anything you're going to manufacture out of a leads system. So get them in to your philosophy. But if your philosophy is disconnected online, your customers are going to smell that from a mile away.
Well, yeah, when you look at the
So-
amount of time customers spend today online, but also I have to mention an experience I had when I was in Tokyo a couple of years ago. I went into a Lexus store in downtown Tokyo, and in that market, the stores are owned by the manufacturer. It was a completely different experience. They were so happy that you were even there. Like they were reverent the fact that you were there and that they could help you. But more importantly, there was no sales process at all to start. It was just, how can we help you? And obviously the culture is a little bit more bowing and stuff. But at the end of the day, very much like Sewell, it was like, okay, well, we're just happy you took the time. I mean, that's what really struck me.
Hey, Ian.
Yeah.
A real
Yeah.
good way to solve the disconnect is get some dealers to look at their own websites and see how incredibly difficult they are to navigate.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And one of the challenges about being true omni-channel and dealers, and the disconnect with dealers, is that they say, "Oh, we don't need it." And I said, "Oh, really? Have you flown? Have you booked a hotel room?" That is true omni-channel experience, where it doesn't matter if you book through a third party or whatever. You show up at the airport, it's all there, and they pick up exactly where you left off the last point. And you actually, as a consumer, appreciate and expect that. Now at a dealership, it's completely opposite. It is so fragmented. It's awful. It's an awful experience. And that's why, if you look at the trust factor in a dealership, it hovers around 40%. Why? Because we treat our customers in that manner. And there's dealers out there go, "Oh, no, we're all this, we're all that." I tend to look back to the Rubik's Cube article I wrote about perception and reality. A Rubik's Cube is a 6-sided cube there, and if you put two side by side, one completed and one scrambled, they both have 6 sides, same amount of colors, same amount of squares. They turn in the same way, and they do everything the exact same thing, completely different. They're completely different, but one is perception and one is reality. And I'll guarantee a dealer will say, "Oh, we're just 3 turns short of solving the puzzle."
But you got to look at it, Peter, and say in 2000, and granted that was a while ago now, in 2000, in the early days of the internet, what percentage of dealers had a website or interested in having a website, in your opinion?
Oh, it was minute, and I can go back to some. I did a lot of consulting for law firms in the last decade, and in doing so, law firms, 30% of law firms do not have a website, and 30% of lawyers don't have email addresses.
Well, they don't like email. They're
And
not fans.
that was only 3 years ago.
Oh yeah, I think the stat off the top of my head was about 40% of dealerships in the year 2000 didn't have a website at all. They still believe Yellow Pages was the way to go. Go ahead.
2 questions.
Go ahead.
Number 1, does anybody raise a hand that knows a dealership that doesn't have a website?
Today, it's probably very
because
small.
you'll never know.
Every dealer has a website. And question number 2, what is their call to action? Does every dealership have a telephone number to call?
Most of them do. Yep.
You betcha. Every single one of them has a phone call. So
But
go ahead.
here's the part about that, Joel, is every dealership on their website has a 1-800 number that runs you through. This call will be recorded for quality and training purposes. That's the biggest line of bullshit I've ever heard. And I'm sorry to use that language, but it is. You know what it is there for? It's for liability purposes. Because if we screw up, we can go back to the recording that'll show where the liability lies, and that's it.
You're right, and I think we agree that shoppers spend hours and hours and hours deep diving. Somebody said before it takes sometimes up to 3 months before they decide on which car they want to buy. Yeah, the internet is where it's at. Everybody is deep diving, research on the internet. So when the dealer puts up a telephone number to call, the customer's like, "Are you kidding? I'm going to call the dealership. But what am I going to do when I call the dealership? Hi, Harry. I'm Harry, the dealer. How can I help you? Well, I want a car. What kind? it's BS. You're 100% right, Peter. They have to either go into the dealership. That's the reason why we're working with Ford right now, because Ford is putting vid calls into a lot of their dealerships, and we're working past the dealer, but we're working with Ford directly. They want to see how well this, and I'm not pitching video call, I'm just saying that's how it seems to work. They know it's not the telephone call, it's the face-to-face, whether they come into the dealership and meet face-to-face or whether they're online because people shop from home and meet face-to-face.
It's pure communication.
Yes.
Pure communicating to the point where the customer is heard, and that's when the customer will make that conversion. They make it, they're in control. And that's the other misnomer. Every dealership wants to be in control. Let me control my customers. How can I control my customers? They're never in control. I had a great conversation not too long ago with a very, very attractive journalist out of Europe. And I said to her, I said, I'm going to invite you out for dinner. I'm going to tell you when I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to tell you where we're going to go. I'm going to tell you what to dress, how to dress. I'm going to tell you what you're going to eat, how fast you're going to eat it, what you can drink with it. At the end of the meal, I'm going to tell you how much you're going to pay out of the date. Then I'm going to ask you for another date. Was I ever in control? No. It was a misnomer. It was an absolute misnomer that I was actually in control. And guess what? I would never get another date.
So you mean customers don't want to go to the road to the sale? Is that what you mean?
No, they don't.
Well, Troy's got to take off. So, Troy, any final thoughts?
No, I mean, this is huge, guys. And I love the fact that we're talking about converting leads today. But when we look at the big picture, converting leads is just one small element of it. And it's all about how we take care of our customers. And there's a lot of great disruptors out there and a lot of great new tools. But if you don't have the people and you don't have the process, the tools are inconsequential. But if you have great people and great process, then there's your other piece of the puzzle. So, I really think leads are valuable when they're used properly and when they're grabbed at the right time. But, we've had so many shows about the buying experience and the process. And Peter, I've heard you say this a million times. Like it's not as complicated as we're making it. But I think you've got 100 different people looking at it 100 different ways, coming up with 100 different answers, and it's really just as simple as removing the roadblocks, right?
Yeah. And what's your expert tip before you go? Removing the roadblocks?
I mean, speed's important, but genuine. It has to be sincere. It has to be relevant. A speed response of call me has zero value. In fact, it's probably got negative value. Or a speed response of you have to come into the store has negative value. A speed response of, again, like we're talking about the Japanese experience.
Yeah.
It's, how can I help you today? Or the Sewell experience. How can I help you today? And I've told this story before. I was buying insurance for my cabin, and I walked up to the insurance guy and said, hey, I think you're the guy who's going to sell me insurance. I said, I don't sell insurance. I help people who need insurance to buy insurance. And I think that shift in perspective is really what we need to do, is realize if people are on your website and they want to buy a car and they give you some of their personal information, treat that with respect and be helpful, add value. Don't turn it into if I don't grab this thing in 5 seconds, it's going to vaporize. And I think you'll find that the people you treat with the most respect and you treat like people are the ones that are going to buy cars more often.
Thanks for that, Troy. Nick, what's your thought? We're running out of time. What's your final expert tip? You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. I'm really agreeing with Troy 1000%. And also I want to touch base where Peter mentioned the omni-channel and you pick it where you left it. One of the things that I am dialed in, I should say, is that particularly being able to pick it from where you left it, rather than taking the consumer right back to the beginning of the process. So understanding the consumer coming in from online versus the walking customer, you want to find all the information about this particular customer. But if you have had the experience with the consumer throughout the chat and conversations and video conferences or whatever you have done, it is important that you don't create that redundant conversation once the customer makes it to the dealership. And that is what I really want to touch base.
100%. I mean, when you look at Amazon, to pick a random platform, when you build something in your shopping cart, when you come back, it still remembers that, right?
It's still where it's at.
Yeah, like if you're a customer and you do 90% of the process, and then you go into the store and they go, oh, how can I help you today? Oh, I was online. Oh, I don't know that. That's a problem. It's a disconnect. Joel, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think leads are like a baseball game, guys. I think leads get a customer to first base, but they haven't scored a run yet. And you've got a big batter. You need to get a double, triple, or home run to bring that customer all the way around base score. You just can't. The lead gets to the first base, no question. It's the call to action. What happens after that lead?
Fantastic, Larry. Larry, you want any final thoughts? You're muted, by the way. I think he's not available. Go ahead, Peter. Final thoughts.
No, I'm available. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm in between interviews here.
Final thoughts.
I agree with what.
Yeah.
Agree with what everybody said. It's the process has got to be from the beginning to the end. If you don't make it easy for people, they're never going to get there. And if they get there and you blow it up when they're there, what good is it? So we just need to retune our process from beginning to end and understand how important and how lucrative each lead can be.
Fantastic. Peter, any final thoughts on one expert tip?
Just my final thoughts are the business isn't broken. It's fractured right now. We can fix it very quickly with just looking at new processes, optimizing technology, and understanding people at a better level. And that's basically it. We have to understand people at a better level.
And do a little bit more of this, whether it's digitally or otherwise. That's it for the show. Thanks very much for everybody, and have yourself a great week. Bye for now.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Have
Yep.
a nice day.
You too.